So glad that you're here today. Thanks for coming. Today, we're going to start with just a couple of announcements before our exam, right? Everybody studied for the exam. Ha! April Fools, right? Ha 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 ha. It wasn't my idea. Ha ha ha. Yeah. Okay, so couple of announcements. So you should have gotten by now your time for the field trip. If you've not gotten your time for the field trip, make sure that you check in with your TAs. So that's on April 12th that we'll be doing that. Um, Today, let's see, other announcements. This week, you have your upcycle, make, or repair project that you'll be bringing to lab. So you worked on this and journaled about it back in week 9. You've had a couple of weeks to work on it if you wanted to do that. And then you're going to bring it to your lab this week to show your group what you've been working on, what you repaired, what you upcycled, what you made. So that's coming up this week at lab, as well as some other fun stuff that your lab has, your TAs have planned for you. So that's good. And a heads up that we're going to be switching seats again on Monday to start part 3 of the course. So you can look for an announcement from your TAs, from me, about new seats coming up. So with those announcements all out of the way, I would just like to take a moment and do a centering so you can get into your whatever you feel is your place of focus and simultaneous comfort. So getting your feet flat on the floor, roll your shoulders back, stretch out a little bit if you need to, take some good deep breaths. And today we have a Mary Oliver poem to open class. Every morning the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches. And the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination lighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to hope. Thank you, Mary Oliver. So today we have a guest speaker that I am happy to present. This is Alexis Noel, and she is here to share with you, well, she'll tell you more, but she's here to share with you a project that she's been working on. And so there you are. This button advances you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
So, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about how farmland in the United States is being used not just for food, but also for energy production. Specifically, I'll be comparing two major uses of land, growing corn for ethanol and using land for solar panels. This topic is really important because land is a limited resource, and how we choose to use it reflects our priorities, whether that's food production, energy, environmental protection, or long-term sustainability. So a little bit about me. I'm a junior majoring in business analytics and information systems. I'm minoring in both sustainability leadership, which is why I'm here, and then also supply chain and information sciences and technology. On campus, I'm involved in a sorority, Phi Sigma Sigma. I'm on a dance team, Penn State Lyrical Line, and then this year for Thon, I was a Rules and Regulations second in command. So my buy-side experience, I was a student in the fall of 2024, and then I TA'd last fall. A little bit about the sustainability leadership minor. It's one that's really easy to get through BuySci. So if you consider being a TA for BuySci, which I highly recommend, you get pretty much all the credits just from TAing, and then you have to take a few extra courses, which are Sustainability 200. I think I took GeoSci 10, and then you have to do your capstone project, which is what I'm doing today. Um, Both TAing and this minor have been some of the great experiences that I've ever had. Being a TA, you meet so many new people, get so many new connections, and it honestly just is a great experience and furthers your education. So I highly recommend it if you're interested. So, a little introduction. When we think about farmland, most people automatically think about food, but today farmland is doing more than that. Millions of acres of corn are grown every year specifically to produce ethanol, which is then used for fuel. At the same time, we're seeing more and more solar farms being built, especially in rural areas where there's a lot of open land. Some farmland is now being used in two very different ways for energy production, and that raises an important question. If we're going to use land for energy, which option actually makes more sense? So I want you guys to turn to the people next to you and just talk about that. Which do you think is better? Using farmland for growing corn and then using that for ethanol, or solar panels? So you can turn and talk. What time is it? Listen. Okay. I don't know. This is like answer literally. I have something. My hands are like shaking. I get to ring some bell. I didn't even think about that. Still. Maybe. Okay. So my argument as far as this project goes, in this presentation, I'm going to argue that solar panels are a better choice when farmland is used for energy production. I'm going to support this by looking at three main areas: environmental impact, economic effects, and leadership and responsibility. By looking at all three of these, we can get a full picture of which option is more efficient and sustainable in the long run. Land use efficiency. One of the biggest differences between corn ethanol and solar energy is how efficient they use land. Solar panels produce about 100 to 125 more times net energy per acre than corn ethanol. That's a huge difference. On top of that, corn ethanol requires about 85 times more land to power the same number of miles as solar-powered electrical vehicles. So this means so this means, so what this means is that if we're using land to produce energy, solar is able to generate far more energy using far less space. And since farmland is limited, using it efficiently becomes really important. Research evidence. When we look at the research, the numbers make it even clearer. Corn ethanol requires about 30 times more land per unit of energy compared to soil. Right now, corn ethanol uses around 29.7 million acres of farmland in the United States. But solar could generate the same amount of energy using only 3.2% of that land. Another way to think about it is that solar can produce the same amount of energy at 1 hectare that corn would need 31 hectares to produce. So overall, the research consistently shows that corn ethanol is extremely land intensive, while solar energy is much more efficient. The pros and cons of corn ethanol. Now looking at the environmental impacts, corn ethanol has several downsides. Growing corn requires a lot of fertilizer and pesticides. These chemicals don't just stay in the soil, they often run off into nearby rivers and lakes. The runoff contributes to the algae growth, which can reduce oxygen levels in the water and harm fish and other aquatic life. In addition, large-scale corn farming is usually monocultural, meaning only one crop is grown over large areas. This reduces biodiversity and weakens soil health over time. So even though corn ethanol is considered renewable, it still has significant environmental consequences. Solar panels, pros and cons. Solar energy is much cleaner in comparison. It does not require annual planting, fertilizers, or pesticides. Once the panels are installed, they generate electricity from the sunlight without producing emissions. So solar avoids many environmental problems that come with corn ethanol, making it much more sustainable. However, the downsides of solar panels is they have extremely high upfront costs, and then also emissions have to be emitted when transporting solar panels from wherever they're made to these farm fields and everything. Wildlife and biodiversity. When we look at wildlife, there is also a noticeable difference. Cornfields are typically monocultural, which limits the variety of plants and animals that can live there. This reduces biodiversity. On the other hand, some solar farms are designed with pollinator-friendly plants underneath the panels. This can help support bees and other species, in some cases, even restore habitats. So instead of reducing biodiversity, solar farms can actually sometimes improve ecosystems. And in the photo up there, you can see that you can even have stock kind of roaming underneath the solar panels and it doesn't affect. And then that's also a good way for animals to get shade and be able to get out of the cool in some of the, or the hot in some of the warmer months. Some more economic concerns. So now shifting to economics, this is where a lot of concerns do come in. Corn ethanol has supported farmers and rural economies for a long time, so naturally people worry that switching to solar could hurt those communities. There's also a concern that using land for solar panels means less land for traditional farming. So these concerns are completely valid and important to consider when switching to solar. Moving on to agrivoltaics. Solar doesn't necessarily need to replace farming. They can work together in the same place. There's something called agrivoltaics, which allows land to be used for both solar energy and agriculture at the same time. For example, farmers can graze livestock underneath the solar panels or grow certain crops between them. This increases land efficiency and shows that solar and agriculture can actually work together. So this is like best case scenario, best of both worlds. You're able to do both at the same time. Economic benefits of solar. Solar also provides a more stable income than farming. Farming income can change a lot depending on weather and crop prices, which makes it very unpredictable. Solar projects often provide long-term lease payments, which give farmers consistent income over many years. This sustainability can make a big difference for farmers when dealing with financial uncertainty. So a lot of the times when there are solar panels that are put in, let's say, a farm or a field, somebody else is leasing that, meaning that they're getting the money from the person. So farmers can benefit if they do sell some of their land, and they don't necessarily need to sell all of it just to succeed. Broader economic impact. On a larger scale, solar energy also has strong economic potential. It could supply up to 40% of US electricity by 2035. Expanding solar would create jobs, increase local tax revenue, and lower long-term energy costs. So solar doesn't just benefit individual farmers, it can benefit entire communities. Moving on to more leadership and responsibility. This issue is also about leadership and responsibility. Land use plays a major role in greenhouse gas emissions, and shifting to renewable energy is important for addressing climate change. Continuing to use large areas of land for low efficiency energy sources does not align well with these goals. So making better decisions about land use is part of responsible leadership. At the same time, change can be difficult, and moving away from traditional uses of farming can be a very challenging thing for communities to consider. Many communities have strong cultural ties to farming, so changing how land is used can feel threatening. That is why leadership is important to help guide communities through these changes and show that solar can be an opportunity rather than a loss. More about policy and change. Policy also plays a big role in shaping energy systems. Corn ethanol expanded largely because of government mandates and subsidies. If policy supports shift towards more efficient renewable energy like solar, the energy system can evolve in a way that benefits both people and the environment. So this kind of shows everything that I just talked about and which is better in the certain sense. So when we compare everything side to side, solar clearly stands out compared to corn. It uses less land, produces more energy, has fewer environmental impacts, supports biodiversity, and provides more stable economic benefits. So across every category, solar performs better in general. So again, I want you to turn to your partner and just talk about these results and what you kind of think, and if you were surprised by anything, if you have any differing opinions. And then I want to hear from you guys after that. Feel like I'm talking too fast. We're at the end. I'm understanding you. It's 2:47. I think about this, I'm like, so what? Right switch? Yeah. It's like they're stuck in the old story. Yeah. I think it's the threat of like people don't want to give up the farmland because they think that it's going to lead into like housing developments. And I guess, I don't know. Yeah. The whole like technology barrier between certain people is, I think, also a major issue. Yeah. Because it's like, why do that when we can just do it the way we've been doing it? Eventually that soil is going to become so depleted anyways. Yeah. Like, yeah, I had to write a 2 to 5 page essay on soil health. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Are the lights? Oh, okay. Thanks, Brandon. Oh, that's fine. Thanks. Well, I was saying, like this, you can see everyone so much more than like I took it in the hub and then TA in the hub, and you can't see any dark and everybody's flat. Yeah. So it's like a lot harder than this, which also makes it more nerve-wracking though. So I'm like, I can see every single face in this room. Like that's like yeah. Uh, Can anybody share kind of their opinions and if they changed at all? No one?
Well, we originally thought solar panels, like, I mean, we still do, but I really liked how you like explained it like very thoroughly and stuff like that. I was wondering if you know, I don't know if you'll know this, how ethanol comes from corn or like what that's about. If you don't, it's totally okay.
Don't they burn it kind of? I honestly don't know. I don't know why I didn't look into
We found that just kind of interesting, but we also like how like all the right sides, like all the solar panel sides were like good things, like all of the categories like beat the corn ethanol.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there's a use for both because corn ethanol, if you go to the gas pumps, it's ethanol based to reduce emissions and all that kind of stuff, reduce the amount of fuel. It's cut into our fuel, and then for the safer fuel, it's more ethanol and all that kind of stuff. But solar panels, I feel that once the grids and everything we develop as a society, I think they'll come more into play, just because the data centers, our energy our energy use, solar panels are kind of going to be a must.
Anyone else?
I thought like the agrivolt thing was really cool. I think like a few weeks ago I learned about like that's how they grow coffee beans because they need like shade to grow and they put like solar fields over the coffee beans. So just a connection.
I was just wondering, like, how the farmers, like, what else they would do. Because you said that they would, like, sell some of their land to then get the solar panels. But, like, I don't really know any farmers that are well off enough to just sell some of their land and, like, they would be making so much less money.
Yeah, so I think in some ways it would harm farmers, obviously. But with like leasing, it would be almost like they're paying rent to the farmers. So they would have somewhat of a more steady income, but they can still, I mean, they can keep some of their land and sell some of it just because solar energy, you don't need as much land. So if they kept a few acres and still had maybe, I mean, they could still do corn, whatever, but then also like something like chickens or any type of other stock and selling that could also benefit them.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, like, if they were gonna rent it or not. So.
So, to conclude, the best use for farmland also depends on the purpose. If the purpose is food production, corn is essential. So, corn is definitely something that we'll never get fully rid of because we eat corn, stock eats corn, we need it regardless. Um, but if the purpose is energy production, solar panels are clearly the better choice. They use less land, produce more energy, cause less environmental damage, and align better with climate goals. At the end of the day, land is limited, and how we use it reflects our priorities. And if you're interested in all at all about the sustainability leadership minor, contact Skylar. I highly recommend it. Just a little bit about like my experience with it and how it ties in. So obviously I'm a business major, so sustainability is pretty far from any of the courses that I'm taking. But with this minor, it gives me the option to kind of stand out more in applications, as well as it gives me competitive advantage just because a lot of companies are looking for people that know more about sustainability, especially now that companies are being kind of forced to report their emissions and everything. So you do need sustainable people on your team. Um, and then also just with long-term climate change and kind of changing the future for the better, having this minor can really just put you ahead in the work world. Yeah, that's everything. Thank you guys so much.
So, Alexis, I'm going to put you on the spot just a moment. What was an aha moment for you as you did this project? Something that really like, oh.
I think for me, and I think we kind of talked about this, was the agrivoltaics, because I never knew that this could exist kind of in the same area. So I thought it was really neat to learn that you can do both at the same time and still not have as many admissions just because you're not growing as much. So for me, that was like a big moment. But then also just learning kind of the differences in numbers as far as with comparison of how much energy you need from corn compared to the solar panels was definitely a cool thing to learn.
Pretty dramatic.
Yeah, very different.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks
you.
for your time doing this.
Yes.
All right. So take this back to Chris. So thinking about this project particularly, we're going to build on this as we go. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go. Whatever you need to do. Let's see. All right. So we're going to think about then. Can you actually go open this slide and it should have a bullet point where you can, yeah, click to add text. So you're going to do that for us right here. So what information goes into what my aha about working with Alexis in this project was about how many aspects go into making the choice. So if you put yourself in the shoes of the farmer and you have this piece of land that you're going to have the opportunity to use however you see best, right? What goes into that choice? And also how that fits where we are in part 2 of BiSci. What goes into making the choices? We've talked a lot about a lot. So I'd like to make a list. So if you can help me brainstorm this, what information goes into making a choice?
Well, like for this example, I would say like the cost of like the investment into the solar panels and like the other infrastructure that has to be put in place, and if it's feasible, or does it have to be like a partnership with like a large energy company?
Yes, right. So investment, right? And so the costs of that. And so how can we then take that? Maybe I'll put you on the spot now. How does that apply to the choices that you have the opportunity to make, right? When you consider investment, what does that mean personally?
Like how much are you willing to put in like your skin into the game? Let's
Yeah.
say like how much are you willing to risk because you're moving into like a new segment or something you've never done before.
Right. Yeah. And that takes a lot of different energy, right? Or investment. So thank you very much. So that's important to consider. What are the costs and the investments involved? What else goes into these choices? Somebody else up there.
I would say opportunity cost, like the next best option.
Say more, will you please?
So it's like when you're making a decision, you got to think like, what's the next best option? Like if I do this, it's like an econ thing. I don't know. I learned about it earlier in the semester. So
Econ thing. Yeah.
felt like it was, relevant here. But yeah, just like kind of like if I'm doing this, what am I sacrificing?
Yeah. So what am I sacrificing? So it ties into that idea of cost as well, but it's more about the risk side. What are you putting in? What else do we have to take into consideration in choice?
I would say like stakeholders, like maybe this will help us, but maybe it'll harm someone else. How can we like make it so it helps everybody?
Yes, make it so it helps everybody. So when you're considering, you use the word stakeholders. So who else is involved in the process of my choice, or who is going to be influenced in the outcome of my choice, right? Who's involved? Who can be, you mentioned supporters, right? The investors in the project, but then also who's being affected. So different groups of stakeholders, I can see that as something important. So how does that play into choice? That's cool. What else? Yeah. Performance quality, conformance quality. Okay, he's coming with the microphone. I want to hear more. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like you want to bring the same product every time and have it like be consistent. So you want to use energy that's always going to be consistent and never and always be there and never break down,
Yeah.
basically.
And so can you see that parallel? Do you want to say anything about the parallel if you're a business making the choice or if you're an individual
Yeah,
making that?
so I assume I don't know much about this, but I assume corn ethanol will always be available because it's in very high demand. Whereas if you have solar panels, you have to maintain it. Um you have like you need to do like and it could break down anytime. So
Mhm.
there's the issue with conformance.
Understandable, yes. And so making sure that the product is available when you want it, but then on that personal, thinking about the personal choice, if I make the choice to take a promotion at work, right? So there are definitely some costs, some investment, there's risk there. There are stakeholders. Who am I going to be supervising? How's that going to change the job that I'm doing now? But then also, am I going to be able to bring that energy all the time, right? So the parallel between this business and the personal idea of choice continues to work, these parallels. What else?
I think that we as people like to follow the herd. And so a lot of the times when we're making these decisions, we're doing them based off of what other people are doing. And it's really hard to branch out and do your own thing. So I think a lot of the time people are scared of judgment or scared of making mistakes. So they're just going to keep doing something, even though they know it's not right. Or maybe it's even more difficult to do something better, even though we know that it's going to be better. Like with the solar panels, it's kind of people know it's good, but not that many people do it, and it's kind of hard to be like, oh, I want to do this because I don't know how people are gonna, perceive me and stuff like that.
Yeah, what are my neighbors going to think? We've been growing corn together for 20 years. Yes. And so how then is that personal, what's the parallel to personal choice with that? The idea that it's easier to conform in our day-to-day. This is what people expect of me because this is how I've been showing up. So what else, Morgan?
I was gonna say time. Like whenever I'm making just a simple choice, I'm usually thinking of how long this choice is gonna take compared to if I just stay with what I was originally gonna go with. And then I was also gonna say happiness. So like if I'm making a choice, I'm thinking about what will make me happy and
Mm-hmm.
maybe what will be fun or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the application again to business, right? Are you excited to try something new? Is that enlivening? Like to go from, I've been growing corn for 20 years and now, you know what? I'm ready for something new. How much time is that going to take? And then also, how is that going to be just fun to try something new with all these other things involved? Anybody else have thoughts about choice? Oh,
Thank you. So when I first thought about this, I wanted to think of like the connection that you have to the land because I'm also like a business major and I thought about it, but also the connection to your land. Like you could have ancestral like land, you can have a personal connection to it. And I think that it's also difficult in a choice because you could be so connected to it. You were raised there or your family generations owned that land and now you can have to like turn it in. It's a little bit difficult. And that's how I thought of personal connection.
yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. So valuable. I think right here in the front row too.
I also think a big one is outcomes in short term and long term. I think with the corn and the solar panel things, what we didn't consider is the fact that like in the long term, say we find something better, more sustainable than solar panels, you can't reuse that land because it's already rewired and there's electrical currents all throughout the land. So in the long term, if say you have a bad harvest with corn, you got next year. You know what I'm saying? You can make new plants, you can make new crops, you can build things on top of it. If you have to get rid of the solar panels in the long run, then it's like that land is completely destroyed and there's no use for it anymore. So in the long term, it's even more harmful to the environment.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't know much about, that infrastructure. I appreciate that. And then also that tie into the personal choices. What is the long-term effect of this choice that I'm making? That's really interesting. Yes.
I mean, I feel like everyone's already kind of said this, but something I was thinking of the whole time was just like morals and values and like your choices aligning with your values. And an example of this, I know there's a lot of business students here, but there's this huge push in business to use AI for a lot of things and to kind of just replace people with AI. And in every single one of my classes, it's being pushed. But that's not something that necessarily aligns with my morals. And so I have to make the active choice, even if my teachers are suggesting it not to use it.
Mm, hmm. Yeah. Yes. And what a good example, a very timely example of AI right now. We'll talk more about that in the technology class coming up. So So lots of these things. So when we are approaching our day-to-day life, as well as approaching these choices that we have, whether we are looking at farmland in the United States or around the world, whether we're thinking about business, whether we're thinking about oil fields, whether we're thinking about like all of these things are so complicated, right? There's so many layers of things to think about that's why it's so our system is so challenging to change. Because there are all these things that we need to move in different ways and think about in different ways and consider when we have the opportunity to do so. So I just wanted to point out that this part two that we've gone through of all of the different challenges that we've been facing here in part two are here because of long-term evolution into where they have been, right? So these symptoms that we're seeing are because of long-term problems. And yet, the idea that we do have capacity, if we understand the situation, that we can look at them from a different light. That how many, business majors are in here, and how can business, that's a very general term, but how can we think about business from these different angles? How can we think about marketing? How can we think about education? How can we think about economics? All of the different things that you're studying have different ways of thinking about them. It's just that we are generally in this one way, this one story right now. So for this unexam, for the remainder of the course, this is the unexam. And as we talked about for unexam one, a test doesn't really fit this particular class because we're understanding that we're in this as a community. So an individual exam doesn't particularly fit. And yet there's lots of good things to talk about. So I'd like you to take a moment and brainstorm a question. So if they're in this setting of an unexam, what's something that you're curious about related to part two of the course, that a question that you would like to pose to your classmates, an unexam question? So take a moment, quiet thinking there on your journal, page 107, I think, and think about what an unexam question would be that you would like to pose to the group. Who would like to pose our first unexam question or next unexam question?
A question I had is like, how can we like truly be sustainable, like if all of our actions like have a negative impact on the earth?
How can we be sustainable if our actions have a negative impact on Earth? So what does sustainable mean, essentially? Who would like to speak to that?
I feel like it's about our intent and our effort, not just like doing things that are still harmful to the environment and like having good intentions behind it, but genuinely making change in our lives, whether that's giving something up, changing our lifestyle, doing something to just reduce a little of our own impact is how we can act sustainably.
Thank you for saying that. Who else would like to answer that about sustainability?
So I'm on the sustainability team for Moving On. Shout out, May 1st. Anyways, but we are currently working through our 5-year sustainability plan, and the best way that they described it to us is that yes, sustainability, it's really, really hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but slowly working to a goal of making one thing sustainable, then that it in turnover will lead to all other aspects. 'Cause right now we're trying to make moving on completely 100% sustainable in 5 years. But then that ties into Penn State, the amount of waste that Penn State creates, the amount of energy that Penn State creates, and then therefore that goes out into Center County and beyond. So it's kind of not that sustainability is impossible. It's gonna show up in a bunch of different aspects.
Step by step.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for working on that.
Will our society be ever, or will our society ever be able to break free from technological addiction?
Who would like to speak to that? Technological addiction. What does that look like?
I feel like we will just because it's kind of like a cycle, kind of like before the internet was invented, like everybody resisted it, and then now it's been accepted, and then it's going to go back into people seeing the wrong in it, and then just go back to like how people were in like the 90s when they were like, oh, like this isn't really going to be a thing. It's just going to be like, oh, like you're going to use it for work, but nothing else. I feel like we are tied down to it significantly more than we should be. And I feel like that's definitely an issue. Obviously, that's why the question was brought up. But I feel like we will eventually be able to because people see like the negative. It's everything just comes with awareness. So I feel like once the awareness is created, then people are going to start rejecting technology.
I was just listening to a pretty interesting, compelling podcast on my way here that relates to our happiness class from Monday and relates to this question of technology and our relationship with it. I'll send it out in an announcement link to you in case any of you it's from the podcast, The Good Life Project. And the gentleman speaks very well, two gentlemen speak very well to this topic. It's really pretty interesting. So I'll send that out today. Anybody else want to speak to the technology question? Right behind you, Chris. Mallory is here.
I think it's a matter of, are people going to be able to give up convenience for realizing that they want to make a change? I don't think it's any kind of secret the way that social media and certain technology like smartphones has impacted humans in the long term. We're seeing the effects of it now. We're seeing social media addiction. We're seeing these things. And I think it's a matter of, are you willing to give up that level of convenience for basically just like a happier life?
I feel like that your answer speaks to both of those questions about sustainability and about technology. Thank you.
My question kind of has almost two parts. Um, Looking at part two, we saw a lot of symptoms of climate change. Um, which out of all of the symptoms are you most connected to personally? And how can you use your personal connection to Earth to save that symptom?
Beautiful. What good questions. Cool. Who would like to speak to Vic's question?
I think consciousness is everything, becoming aware is everything. So the sooner we learn how to use technology and how to utilize it for good, the sooner we know how to contribute to the environment positively instead of negatively by contributing to energy waste and less energy inefficiency. That's how we can start to use it to our advantage. So it's all about awareness. We're already starting to become aware as we're, learning about AI, as we're learning about, energy outputs, solar panels and just about corn ethanol. So it's just all those things tie together, and that's how we can use it.
Thank you.
To answer Vic's question, I would say you need to pick a cause you care about and then start within your community. It's like easy to get overwhelmed if you're trying to like solve all the world's problems at once. So if you just pick like one thing that you really care about and then start with the people around you, I think that's like the most effective way. And of course, you need like, more participation than just yourself. So if you have everyone doing that in their communities, then I think that's how you get like large scale change.
Thank you. Vic, will you repeat your question one more time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
How can you use your personal connection to Earth to save the symptoms that are causing or that are happening to that connection?
Mhm.
If anybody wants to.
Thank you. Anyone else want to engage with that question? How can you use your personal connection to Earth to work toward saving the symptoms that we see?
I think a part of loving Earth is you loving yourself. And I think that if you love yourself, you will take actions that lead to saving the Earth.
Thank you. Yeah. Beautiful. Anyone else for Vic's question or another? Oh, sorry. I didn't see your hand.
I think just being able to advocate to other people, because I think a problem that a lot of people have with climate change is just they hear all of these things, but they don't really have anything in their life. They don't see how it affects them personally. So I guess if you can go out and speak to your friends about how climate change is impacting you, then they can sort of see how these things are impacting the lives of those around them and them themselves. And then it makes it easier to get them to go out and make a change.
Thank you. When you don't feel alone, it's so much easier. Yeah, Scout. It's so much easier to make change when you're not feeling alone. Go ahead.
I have a connection to the ocean because I live down at the Jersey Shore every summer. And seeing all the plastic and trash in the water, I really try to focus on what I can do to change that. And although I have a plastic cup with me right now, I try to limit that and recycle as much as I can.
Thank you. So those direct actions. So when we do this, right, when we are our BiSci logo, you can look at it as two hemispheres of the brain, two lobes of the lung, as well as the roots and the branches of the tree. So thinking about how we have these connections, right? It helps us to lessen that feeling of overwhelm. Thank you very much. I hope you have a beautiful day.